My substitute teacher refused my help, then almost killed my classmate with peanuts. I'm the designated helper in 5th grade. Every sub plan says, ask Rosalinda if you need help. Yesterday's substitute walked in with attitude. I'm Rosalinda. I can help with... Excuse me? I've been teaching 23 years. I don't need a child telling me how to run a classroom. Sit down. Fine. No help then. Our new student kept asking something in Spanish, getting frustrated. The sub kept saying, English only. This is America. I speak Spanish. He was asking for the bathroom, but I stayed silent. Not my job anymore. She didn't know Lucas needs medication at 11 o'clock, so he missed it and felt sick. Didn't know about the buddy system, so Jamie got left behind and had a meltdown. Every time something went wrong, she got more flustered, but kept pretending she had control. Then came lunch. There's a massive yellow allergy chart on the wall. Impossible to miss. She walked past it and announced she had peanut M&Ms for good behavior. Harold is deathly allergic to peanuts. EpiPen in the classroom, can't even be near them allergic. He was in the bathroom. My hand shot up. Wait, Harold is allergic. Did I ask for your input? Put your hand down. But he can't eat. One more word and you're going to the principal. I've had enough of your undermining. Harold came back. She put M&Ms on his desk. He ate 3 before I could warn him. His face started swelling. He grabbed his throat. Kids screamed, he's allergic to peanuts. The sub froze. I ran for Harold's EpiPen, gave it to Maya who knew how to use it. She stabbed his thigh while someone got the nurse. The sub finally called 911, hands shaking. Paramedics took Harold. He survived. Then the principal arrived with police. The sub tried blaming me. She's the helper. She knew. She should have told me. The officer stared at her. Ma'am, are you blaming an 11-year-old for your failure to check for deadly allergies before distributing food? But she deliberately didn't. That child tried to warn you. You threatened her. This is on you. Harold's mom pressed charges. The sub lost her license. District banned her permanently. But I keep thinking, what if I'd forced her to listen? What if Harold had died because I was petty about her rudeness? My mom says it's not my fault. The adult is responsible. I tried warning her twice. The new sub today? First thing she did was ask about allergies. I helped her with everything. But this morning, something weird happened. The banned sub was outside school, just standing there, watching kids arrive. The principal called police, but she was on public property. During lunch, the office called me down. My mom was there to pick me up, except my mom was at work. This woman looked nothing like her. I'm not going with you, I said. She grabbed my arm. Your mom sent me. There's an emergency. The secretary looked confused. She's on the approved pickup list. I pulled out my phone, called my mom. Someone's here claiming you sent them. What? I'm at work. Don't go anywhere. Security held the woman until police came. Turns out she was the banned sub's sister. They'd hacked into the system, added her to my pickup list. The banned sub blamed me for ruining her life. Wanted payback. Police found rope and duct tape in the sister's car. They arrested both. But here's the scary part. The sub had been researching my family. Had our address, my mom's work schedule, my after-school routine. She'd been planning this for weeks. Tonight, Mom installed new locks, cameras. We're staying at my aunt's. But I know she's out on bail. I know she blames me. And I know she's angry enough to try again. My phone buzzed during dinner. Unknown number. A photo of me at lunch today, taken from outside the cafeteria window. Text underneath, you should have helped me. Another text. Harold almost died because of you. Another. Now it's your turn to be scared. Mom called police. They said without direct threats, it's just harassment. Then the lights went out. Not just our house. The whole block. My aunt grabbed flashlights. We heard glass breaking downstairs. Mom pushed me into the bathroom. Lock the door. Call 911. I'm calling now, but the line's busy. How is 911 busy? Through the door, I hear footsteps. My aunt screaming. Then silence. Someone's trying the bathroom doorknob. Rosalinda? It's the sub's voice. I just want to talk about what you did to me. The doorknob rattles harder. You ruined my life over some stupid peanuts. Do you know what that feels like? The door starts cracking. The wood splits apart in long pieces and I spin around looking for anything I can use. There's a plunger by the toilet and some towels on the rack, but nothing that feels like a real weapon. Through the broken parts of the door, I see her face and it's twisted up with so much anger that I almost can't believe it's the same person from the school. Her hands are bleeding from hitting the door so hard and there's blood smeared on the white paint. I hear Mom screaming my name from somewhere downstairs, and that sound does something to me. Makes me feel braver than I actually am. My hands are shaking when I reach behind the toilet and grab the heavy ceramic lid from the tank. It's way heavier than I expected, and my arms shake trying to hold it up. The door frame makes this awful cracking sound, and suddenly she's pushing through the opening, stumbling over all the broken wood on the floor. I swing the tank lid with everything I have and it connects with her shoulder and she screams. The impact makes my whole body shake, but it works. She falls sideways into the sink and I see my chance. I drop the lid and it hits the floor with a crash and I'm running past her into the hallway. I'm screaming for Mom and my aunt as loud as I can and my bare feet are slipping on the hardwood floor. Behind me, I hear the substitute cursing and scrambling to get up, but her shoulder must really hurt because she's moving slower now. I run down the stairs, taking them two at a time and almost fall but catch myself on the railing. The whole house is dark except for these little spots of light moving around. I find Mom and my aunt in the kitchen and they're both holding up their phones with the flashlight apps on. They look so scared when they see me. Mom grabs me and pushes me behind her, and my aunt is holding a big kitchen knife with both hands, and her hands are shaking just like mine were. The substitute appears in the doorway and she's breathing really hard and holding her shoulder. Her eyes look crazy and unfocused like she's not really seeing us. My aunt yells that the police are on their way, but the substitute just laughs and it sounds bitter and mean. She says they won't get here in time. Then she starts talking really fast about how I destroyed her whole life over peanuts, how she lost everything because of one mistake, how it's not fair. Mom tells her really firmly that she destroyed her own life by ignoring a deadly allergy and threatening a child, but the substitute doesn't even seem to hear her. She just keeps talking about how unfair it all is and how I should have helped her. The substitute takes a step toward us and my aunt lunges forward with the knife and forces her back into the hallway. Right then we hear sirens getting louder and louder and see red and blue lights flashing through the windows. The substitute's face changes from angry to scared, and she realizes she's trapped. She turns and tries to run toward the back door. Nicholas Swanson and 3 other officers burst through the front door with their guns out and they're shouting commands. The substitute freezes in the hallway with her hands up, and suddenly she looks small and pathetic instead of scary. One of the officers tackles her to the ground and puts handcuffs on her while she's sobbing and saying how unfair everything is. Mom is holding me so tight I can barely breathe, but I don't want her to let go. My aunt drops the knife on the counter and starts crying. The officers are talking on their radios and checking the whole house with flashlights. One of them brings us blankets and tells us to sit down in the living room. About 10 minutes later, this woman in regular clothes comes in and she kneels down so she's at my level. She says she's Detective Cheryl Hoover and asks really gently if I'm hurt. She's checking me over for injuries and Mom is hovering right next to us looking worried. I tell her about hitting the substitute with the toilet tank lid and I'm worried I'm going to be in trouble, but Detective Hoover says I did exactly what I needed to do to survive. She says I was very brave. Paramedics arrive and they check all 3 of us. They're taking pictures of the broken bathroom door upstairs and there's blood on the floor from the substitute's hands. My aunt has a bruised wrist from when the substitute grabbed her earlier, and I have scratches on my feet from running over the broken wood. The paramedics want to take me to the hospital to make sure I'm okay, but I refuse to leave Mom's side. They talk quietly for a minute and then say we can all go together. At the emergency room, this nice nurse cleans my feet and puts bandages on the deeper cuts. Detective Hoover sits with us and takes my statement. I tell her everything starting from when I locked myself in the bathroom all the way to hitting the substitute with the tank lid. My voice gets steadier as I talk, because telling it makes it feel more real and less like a nightmare. She records everything on her phone and promises that the substitute won't be getting out of jail this time. She says they found evidence that proves she planned this for weeks, and that makes it much more serious. The nurse finishes with my feet and gives me a lollipop like I'm a little kid, but I take it anyway. Mom hasn't let go of my hand since we got in the ambulance. A social worker arrives while we're still at the hospital and introduces herself as someone who helps kids after scary things happen. She sits down next to my bed and asks really gently how I'm feeling and if I feel safe right now. I tell her the truth, that I don't feel safe anywhere because the substitute could be outside any window or door, watching and waiting. She nods like she expected me to say exactly that, and doesn't act like I'm being silly or dramatic. She starts explaining something about trauma responses in words I can actually understand, not fancy doctor language. She says my body has an alarm system that's supposed to warn me about danger, and right now that alarm got stuck in the on position because of what happened. That's why my heart keeps racing even when I'm sitting in a hospital bed with police outside. That's why my hands won't stop shaking. She tells me it's completely normal and my brain is actually doing exactly what it's supposed to do to keep me safe. Knowing there's a reason for how weird my body feels makes it slightly less scary. She gives Mom some papers about counseling and support groups and says someone will check on me in a few days. We stay at a hotel that night because both our house and my aunt's apartment are crime scenes with police tape and broken doors. The hotel room has 2 beds, but Mom climbs into mine anyway and holds me while I try to sleep. I wake up every single hour thinking I hear the substitute's voice calling my name through the door. Each time I jolt awake, Mom is already awake too, her hand on my shoulder telling me it's okay, we're safe. The door is locked and there are officers in the parking lot. Morning finally comes and I'm so tired I feel sick. Detective Hoover calls Mom's phone around 8 and puts it on speaker so I can hear. She tells us they arrested Benicio Santos at his home last night and found maps of our whole neighborhood with our house circled in red marker. They found photos of me from the past 3 weeks, hundreds of them, taken from his car with some kind of zoom camera. There are pictures of me walking to the bus stop, playing at recess, sitting in the cafeteria. My stomach drops when I realize he was following me for weeks, and I never noticed. The police discovered that Santos helped his sister-in-law hack into the school computer system to add her name to my approved pickup list. He'd been following me every day to document my routine and figure out the best time to grab me. Detective Hoover says they found evidence he was planning to snatch me from the bus stop because I walk there alone every morning. She found printed schedules showing what time I leave the house, which route I take, how long I'm alone before other kids show up. Hearing all this makes me feel sick because I walk to that bus stop by myself 5 days a week and never thought twice about it. Now I know he was watching me every single time, taking pictures, making plans. Detective Hoover promises that both he and the substitute are in jail now and won't be getting out anytime soon. She says the evidence against them is really strong. Later that day, we go to the police station to meet with the district attorney, a tall man in a suit named Stanley Robinson. He shakes my hand like I'm an adult and sits down to explain everything in a way I can follow. He says the substitute and Santos are being charged with kidnapping conspiracy, stalking, home invasion, assault, and violating the restraining order. That's a lot of charges, and he explains each one carefully. Kidnapping conspiracy means they plan to take me even though they didn't succeed. Stalking is all the following and photographing. Home invasion is breaking into my aunt's apartment. Assault is when the substitute attacked us. He tells us the evidence is overwhelming with all the photos and maps and text messages they found. Both of them will likely serve significant prison time, maybe 10 to 15 years each. But he warns us the legal process will take months with hearings and maybe a trial. I'm relieved they'll go to prison, but scared about having to wait months for it to be really over. The school principal calls Mom that afternoon to say I can take as much time as I need before coming back to class. My new teacher, Paloma Gomez, sends a card to the hotel that's signed by everyone in my class. Most kids wrote things like, "We miss you," and "Hope you feel better soon." Harold's message is longer, and says, "Thank you for saving my life. I'm sorry this happened to you." Reading his words makes me start crying because none of this is his fault. He almost died because a substitute teacher was careless and mean, and now he feels bad that I got hurt. I wish I could tell him he doesn't need to be sorry for anything. Mom hugs me while I cry and says we'll figure out when I'm ready to go back to the school, that there's no rush. The next day, Madeline Cameron, the school counselor, comes to our hotel room instead of making me go to the school. She brings a big bag of art supplies including markers and colored pencils and paper. She sits on the floor with me and explains that sometimes our brains process scary things better through pictures than words. She asks me to draw what happened, anything I remember from the home invasion. At first I don't want to, but she says it might help, so I try. I draw the bathroom door with cracks in it and the substitute's angry face on the other side. Then I draw myself holding the toilet tank lid and the substitute falling down. Drawing it out on paper where I can see the whole thing at once makes it feel less huge and overwhelming in my head. Madeline says I can keep the drawings or throw them away, whatever feels right. I fold them up and put them in my backpack because somehow having them contained in there feels better than having them loose in my mind. A week after the home invasion, we're finally allowed back into my aunt's apartment. The police finished collecting evidence and taking photos of everything. The bathroom door upstairs is temporarily boarded up with plywood because the frame is too damaged to fix right away. There's still police tape in the hallway that my aunt has to peel off before we can go inside. She tries to act normal, making us lunch and talking about regular stuff like the weather. But I catch her checking the locks on the front door about 5 times in an hour. Every time someone walks past in the hallway, she jumps and goes to look through the peephole. At night, I hear her getting up repeatedly to check the windows. She's scared too, even though she's trying to hide it from me. Knowing I'm not the only one who's afraid makes me feel less alone, but also worse because I hate that she's scared in her own home. Mom takes a leave of absence from work to stay with me full-time. I can tell she's worried about money but trying not to show it. One afternoon, I hear her on the phone with her boss in the kitchen, her voice tired and stressed. She's explaining that her daughter was almost kidnapped and needs her right now. Her boss must say something about how long she'll be gone because Mom's voice gets firmer and she says she doesn't know, that she needs to keep her child safe and she'll figure out the job situation later. She hangs up and turns around to find me standing in the doorway listening. She sits me down at the table and explains that keeping me safe is more important than any job, that we'll figure out the money stuff somehow. She says I shouldn't worry about bills or rent. That's her job to handle. But I do worry because I know Mom's paycheck is what pays for everything, and now she's not working because of me. A few days later, Detective Hoover comes to visit and brings another woman with her. She introduces her as Harley Morrow, a victim advocate who specializes in helping kids who've experienced stalking and violence. Harley has kind eyes and doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby or make me feel stupid for being scared. She sits down and explains my rights in the legal process, what will happen at hearings, what I might have to do if there's a trial. She tells me about resources available like therapy and support groups for kids who've been through trauma. She gives me her card with her personal cell phone number on it and says I can call anytime, day or night, if I'm scared or need to talk to someone. Having her number in my pocket makes me feel slightly safer, like I have backup if something goes wrong. Detective Hoover updates us on the investigation and says both Santos and the substitute are still in custody, waiting for their bail hearing. The bail hearing happens a few days later, and Stanley Robinson calls Mom right after to tell us the news. The judge denied bail for both the substitute and Santos because he considers them both a flight risk and a danger to me specifically. Stanley says the judge reviewed all the evidence, including the maps and photos and stalking timeline, and decided they're too dangerous to release. For the first time since the home invasion, I feel like I can actually breathe all the way. Mom starts crying with relief and hugs me so tight I can barely move. My aunt opens a bottle of wine to celebrate, then remembers I'm sitting right there and switches to sparkling cider instead. She pours 3 glasses and we have a toast to justice and safety. The cider is sweet and bubbly, and for just a moment everything feels like it might actually be okay. A few days later, the school secretary calls Mom to say that Cassie wants to meet with us. Mom's voice gets tight when she hangs up and she asks if I'm ready for that, if seeing Harold might be too much right now. I tell her I need to know he's really okay, that not seeing him makes my brain imagine worse things than reality probably is. She agrees, and the secretary sets up a meeting at the park near school on Saturday afternoon. The weather is sunny and warm when we arrive, and I spot Harold immediately because he's running full speed across the grass toward us. He crashes into me with a hug that nearly knocks me over, and both our moms look surprised, but I hug him back just as hard. Cassie walks over more slowly, and her eyes are red like she's been crying, but she's smiling too. She thanks Mom for agreeing to meet, and then she turns to me, and her voice shakes when she talks. She tells me that Harold had nightmares for weeks after the allergic reaction, waking up screaming that he couldn't breathe, that his throat was closing. She says he's been doing better with therapy, but still checks his EpiPen location obsessively, and won't eat anything unless she or his dad checks it first. Her voice breaks completely when she says she's horrified that pressing charges against the substitute led to me being targeted and hurt. I tell her she did exactly the right thing, that the substitute needed to face consequences for what she did. I explain that what happened to me isn't Harold's fault or hers, that the substitute made her own choices to be scary and dangerous. Cassie pulls me into a hug and whispers, "Thank you," about 5 times while Mom and Harold watch us. Harold grabs my hand and pulls me toward the swings, saying our moms need to talk boring adult stuff and we should go play. We sit on the swings side by side, not really swinging, just dragging our feet in the dirt. He tells me he felt guilty that I got hurt because of him, that if he hadn't eaten those M&Ms, none of the bad stuff would have happened. I explain that the substitute made her own choices to ignore my warnings about his allergy, just like she made the choice to stalk me and break into my aunt's house. I tell him that grown-ups are supposed to protect kids, not blame them for adult mistakes, and somehow saying it out loud makes us both feel better. We sit there for a while longer, swinging gently and talking about regular stuff like video games and homework, and it feels normal in a way. Nothing has felt normal in weeks. When we leave, Harold makes me promise to text him when I go back to the school, and I promise I will. 2 days later, Madeline Cameron knocks on my aunt's apartment door carrying a bag full of art supplies and workbooks. She explains that she's going to start coming twice a week for counseling sessions since I'm not ready to go back to the school yet. We sit at the kitchen table and she teaches me about coping strategies for anxiety and fear, showing me how to do deep breathing exercises and how to identify safe people and places. She explains that my body's alarm system got stuck in the on position from the trauma, that it's trying to protect me but it's working too hard. She says we need to gently teach my brain that not every noise or shadow is a threat, that I can feel scared without actually being in danger. We practice the breathing together, counting to 4 while inhaling and counting to 6 while exhaling, and by the end of the session I feel calmer than I have in days. She leaves me with a worksheet about identifying feelings and physical sensations, and I actually fill it out that night instead of letting it sit untouched. 3 weeks crawl by with twice weekly sessions with Madeline, daily check-ins from Detective Hoover, and a routine that feels safe but also trapped. Then Mom gets a call from a security company that changes everything. The owner saw news coverage of our case and wants to install a complete system at our house for free because he has a daughter my age and was horrified by what happened. Mom accepts immediately, her voice thick with gratitude, and within 2 days we have cameras covering every angle of the house, motion sensors on all the windows and doors, and panic buttons installed in every room, including my bedroom. The installation guys are patient and kind, showing me how everything works and letting me test the panic button to see how fast the monitoring company responds. Knowing that help is literally one button press away makes the idea of going home feel less terrifying. We pack up our stuff at my aunt's apartment on a Thursday morning, and she hugs us both goodbye with tears in her eyes. The drive home feels weird, like we've been gone for months instead of weeks. Inside, everything looks the same but feels different, safer with all the new equipment. Mom tells me I can choose which bedroom I want since I can't sleep in my old one anymore, and I pick the smaller guest room right away because it has a window facing the street. I explain that I need to see anyone approaching, that being surprised is worse than knowing someone's there. She understands without me having to say more and helps me move my stuff into the new room. She also gives me a walkie-talkie that connects directly to hers, showing me how to use it and promising she'll keep hers on her nightstand every night. Knowing I can reach her instantly without even getting out of bed helps me feel braver about sleeping alone. The next morning, Joaquin Flores rings our doorbell wearing his school security uniform. He sits with Mom and me at the kitchen table and walks me through the new safety protocols at the school, showing me photos on his tablet of the upgraded entrance security. He explains that all visitors now have to show ID and get photographed before entering, that he'll personally check on me throughout the day, and that I have a special pass to come to the security office anytime I feel unsafe. His calm, professional attitude makes school feel less scary, and I start thinking maybe I can actually go back. He leaves his direct cell phone number and tells me to call or text if I ever feel worried about anything, even if it seems small. A few days later, Paloma Gomez comes to our house carrying a folder of schoolwork and a poster tube. She spreads everything on our dining room table, showing me photos of changes the students made to welcome me back. They created a kindness corner with beanbags and books about bravery, and they made me a banner that says, "We missed you, Rosalinda," with everyone's signatures. She tells me about the lessons they've been doing about speaking up and helping each other, and how my classmates ask about me every day. Her warmth and enthusiasm remind me why I loved being the classroom helper in the first place, why I wanted to help people. I tell her I'll try coming back after Thanksgiving break, and she promises to make sure I sit somewhere I feel comfortable and safe. The night before returning to the school, I have a panic attack at dinner. My heart starts racing, and my hands shake so bad I drop my fork, and all I can think about is the substitute somehow being at the school waiting for me. Mom holds me while I cry and immediately calls Madeline Cameron for an emergency phone session. Madeline talks me through the breathing exercises until I can breathe normally again, reminding me that fear is normal, but I don't have to let it control my choices. She asks me to name 3 things I can see, 3 things I can hear, and 3 things I can touch, grounding me in the present moment. By the time we hang up, I feel steadier, still scared but not overwhelmed. My first day back at the school, Mom walks me to class, and Joaquin Flores escorts us through the building like he promised. When we reach my classroom door, I hear cheering inside, and when I walk in, everyone's clapping, and Harold gives me a high five that makes everyone laugh. Paloma Gomez has rearranged the room so I sit near the door with a clear view of exits, understanding without me having to ask that I need to feel like I can escape if necessary. She introduces the day's schedule and then lets everyone share one thing they're grateful for, and half the class says they're grateful I'm back. It feels overwhelming but good, like maybe I belong here after all. Recess comes and I head outside with my class, staying close to the building where I can see all the exits. Kids run around playing tag and basketball, their voices loud and normal, and I'm watching them when someone taps my shoulder. I spin around fast, heart jumping, but it's just the new student from that terrible day with the substitute. He looks nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot, and then he speaks to me in Spanish. He tells me his name is Diego, and he wanted to thank me for that day, even though I didn't help him right away. He says he was so scared and confused when the substitute kept yelling at him in English, and later when he found out I spoke Spanish but stayed quiet because she told me to, it actually made him feel less alone. He thought he was the only one she was mean to, but knowing she threatened me too helped him understand it wasn't his fault. His words hit me hard because I felt so guilty about not helping him, and hearing him forgive me for something I still blame myself for makes my throat tight. I thank him in Spanish and he smiles, then asks if we can be friends, and I say yes because his kindness feels like a gift I don't deserve but really need. Lunch arrives and I sit with Harold and Maya like we planned. Other kids from my class come over with their trays, asking questions about what happened and where I've been. Someone asks if the substitute really broke into my aunt's house, and another kid wants to know if I'm okay now. Their curiosity feels natural, but it's too much. Too many voices and eyes on me, and I start feeling trapped. Maya cuts in firmly, telling everyone that I'll talk about it when I'm ready, and right now they should just be glad I'm back. She says it without being mean, just protective, and the other kids nod and back off. Harold changes the subject to the science project we're starting next week, and the conversation shifts to normal school stuff. Maya catches my eye across the table and gives me a small smile, and I realize I have people on my side who aren't just adults. Kids my own age understand what it's like to feel overwhelmed, and they're watching out for me, which makes the cafeteria feel less scary. The afternoon goes okay until the fire alarm goes off without warning. The loud ringing makes me jump so hard I knock my pencil case off my desk, and suddenly I'm back in my aunt's apartment hearing glass break downstairs. My heart pounds and my hands shake, and I can't move from my seat while everyone else lines up at the door. Paloma notices immediately and walks over, kneeling next to my desk so we're eye level. She doesn't make a big deal about it or draw attention, just quietly reminds me it's a drill and we need to go outside together. She stands near me during the whole evacuation, her presence calming without being obvious to other students, and by the time we get back inside, I can breathe normally again. When Mom picks me up after school, I'm completely exhausted, but also proud that I made it through the whole day. She can see it on my face and suggests we get ice cream to celebrate. So we go to the place with the good chocolate sauce, and I get 2 scoops because I earned it. The next few weeks pass, and I slowly rebuild my routine and confidence at the school. I volunteer to help Diego with English during reading time, and teaching him reminds me why I liked being helpful in the first place. He's a fast learner and always thanks me, and watching him get better at reading makes me feel useful in a good way, instead of obligated. Paloma is careful not to put too much responsibility on me like the old teacher did, but she lets me assist in ways that feel good. I help explain assignments to kids who are confused and show new students where things are, but I also say no when I'm tired or overwhelmed, and Paloma respects that. Harold and I eat lunch together most days, and he tells me about his new video game, and I tell him about the book I'm reading, and sometimes we don't talk about the scary stuff at all. Maya joins us often, and we form this little group of kids who understand each other without having to explain everything. One evening, Stanley calls Mom and asks to talk to me about the case. He explains that the substitute's lawyer wants to make a plea deal instead of going to trial, but they're asking for a lighter sentence by claiming she had a mental health crisis. He wants to know how I feel about that, which surprises me because I didn't know my opinion mattered in court stuff. I think about it for a minute, remembering her face through the cracking bathroom door and how scared I was, but also remembering that she must be pretty messed up to do what she did. I tell Stanley I want her to get help because clearly something is wrong with her brain, but I also want her to face real consequences because what she did was really bad. Mom squeezes my shoulder and tells Stanley I'm wise beyond my years, and he agrees, saying he'll push for both prison time and required mental health treatment. Knowing that adults are listening to what I think makes me feel respected in a way I'm not used to. A few days later, Hoover calls with an update about Benicio. He took a plea deal and agreed to testify against the substitute in exchange for a reduced sentence. Hoover explains that his testimony will make the case against her stronger by showing that the stalking was planned and deliberate, not just something she did on impulse. Benicio will serve 5 years in prison for his role in the conspiracy, which includes the hacking and following me around to take photos. I feel satisfied hearing this because he helped her do scary things to me, and now he has to face consequences. 5 years seems like a long time. Long enough that I'll be in high school when he gets out, and knowing he'll be locked away makes me feel safer. Mom thanks Hoover for keeping us informed, and I can hear the relief in her voice too. 3 weeks later, Harley comes to our house to prepare me for the preliminary hearing. She explains that I'll need to testify about the home invasion and the bathroom attack, describing what happened so the judge can decide if there's enough evidence for a trial. The thought of talking about it in front of the substitute terrifies me, but Harley says the judge agreed to let me testify by video link so I won't be in the same room as her. I'll sit in a separate room with a camera, and the judge and lawyers will see me on a screen and the substitute will watch on a screen too, but she can't talk to me or get near me. We practice for hours, with Harley asking me questions like the lawyers will, teaching me to take my time and ask for breaks if I need them. The day of the hearing arrives, and I sit in a small room with just Mom and Harley and a camera pointed at me. I can see the courtroom on a monitor, and I spot the substitute sitting at a table in an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller than I remember. When it's my turn, I make myself look at the camera instead of at her face on the screen, and I tell the truth clearly about hiding in the bathroom and hitting her with the toilet tank lid and hearing my aunt scream. My voice shakes sometimes, but I get through it, describing what happened while she watches, and when I finish, I feel like I did something brave and hard. The substitute's lawyer stands up and starts asking me questions in a way that makes it sound like I wanted revenge on her. He suggests I deliberately didn't warn her about Harold's allergy because I was mad about her being rude to me, and that I'm exaggerating what happened at my aunt's house to get her in more trouble. Stanley objects immediately, his voice sharp and angry, and the judge tells the lawyer to stop that line of questioning right now. She says firmly that an 11-year-old cannot be held responsible for an adult's criminal choices, and that the substitute's pattern of blaming others for her own actions is exactly why she's dangerous. The judge looks right at the camera when she says this, like she's talking directly to me, and hearing her defend me so strongly makes me feel good in a way I didn't know I needed. The lawyer sits down looking annoyed, and the judge rules there's enough evidence for a trial, but then she orders the substitute to undergo a psychiatric evaluation first to make sure she's competent to stand trial. This means everything gets delayed by 2 months, which frustrates me so much I want to scream. I just want it to be over. Want to stop thinking about court dates and testimonies and lawyers. Madeline comes over that evening and finds me crying on the couch, angry that justice takes so long. She sits with me and explains that the legal system moves slowly because they want to be thorough and fair, and the wait actually means they're taking the case seriously. She reminds me that the substitute is in jail the whole time, not out walking around, so the delay keeps me safe while they figure everything out. I understand what she's saying, but it still feels unfair that I have to wait and worry for 2 more months, checking the locks and jumping at noises, while the substitute just sits in a cell doing evaluations. Christmas break finally arrives, and Mom surprises me with plane tickets to visit my grandmother in another state. Being somewhere the substitute has never been, where nobody knows what happened, lets me relax in a way I haven't since the home invasion. My grandmother lives in a small house with a big backyard, and she spoils me with homemade cookies and hot chocolate. She tells me stories about when Mom was little and shows me old photo albums, never pushing me to talk about the scary stuff, but making it clear she's there if I want to. I sleep in late every day and play with my grandmother's cat and watch movies, and for whole hours at a time, I forget to be scared. On Christmas morning, I open presents and eat too much food and laugh at my grandmother's jokes, and Mom takes a picture of me smiling that she says she's going to frame. The 2 weeks away feel like a break from my regular life, a chance to remember what it's like to just be a kid without constantly watching over my shoulder. When we get back home in January, the house feels different somehow, like the vacation gave us space to breathe and now we can face what comes next. Detective Hoover shows up 2 days after we return, standing on our front porch with a folder under her arm and a small smile on her face. She sits at our kitchen table and tells us the mental health check came back saying the substitute can stand trial, but her lawyer is now telling her to take a deal instead of going to court. The prosecutor is offering 15 years in prison with required mental health treatment, and she has 1 week to decide if she wants to accept it. I look at Mom and then back at Detective Hoover and tell her, I hope the substitute takes it because I really don't want to testify in a full trial with her sitting there watching me. Mom squeezes my hand and says that's a perfectly normal way to feel, that nobody would blame me for wanting to avoid that. 3 days before the deadline, my phone rings while I'm doing homework, and it's Stanley Robinson calling to say the substitute accepted the plea deal. His voice sounds relieved when he explains we won't have to go through a trial now, that she'll be sentenced in 6 weeks, and I can give a statement about what happened if I want to, but it's completely my choice. He says some victims find it helpful to speak, but others prefer to stay silent, and both options are okay. After we hang up, I spend the rest of the evening thinking about whether I want to stand up in court and tell her how she hurt me. Part of me wants her to hear exactly what she did to my life, but another part is terrified of being in the same room as her again, even with guards and lawyers between us. For days, I go back and forth, writing lists of reasons to speak and reasons to stay quiet, asking Mom what she thinks until she finally tells me this has to be my decision alone. Madeline Cameron helps me figure it out over several sessions at her office, letting me talk through everything I'm feeling without telling me what to do. We start writing a statement together, just putting words on paper to see how it feels. I write about the nightmares that wake me up sweating and scared, about how I check every window and door before I can relax, about the way I can't just be a normal kid anymore because I'm always watching for threats. The words come out messy at first, all jumbled up with anger and fear and sadness, but Madeline helps me organize them into something clear. I also write about what I've learned from all this, about discovering I'm stronger than I thought I was, about how speaking up matters even when adults don't want to listen, about refusing to let the substitute take away my kindness toward other people. By our 4th session, I have 3 pages that feel true and powerful, words that explain exactly how her actions changed me without making me sound weak or broken. The sentencing hearing happens on a cold February morning with gray clouds covering the sun and frost on the grass outside the courthouse. The whole courtroom feels heavy when we walk in, like the air itself knows something important is about to happen. I see the substitute sitting at a table with her lawyer, and she looks smaller than I remember, older somehow, her orange prison jumpsuit hanging loose on her shoulders like she's shrunk inside it. When the judge calls my name, Mom squeezes my hand so tight it almost hurts, and I stand up with my written statement shaking in my hands. Walking to the microphone feels like moving through water, each step taking forever. But I make myself keep going until I'm standing there with the whole courtroom watching me. I read my statement in a voice that stays mostly clear even when it wants to shake, keeping my eyes on the judge instead of looking at the substitute's face. I tell the truth about how her actions changed my life, about the fear that follows me everywhere now, about the therapy and the nightmares and the constant worry. I explain that I tried to help her that day in the classroom, that I tried to protect Harold from the peanuts, and she chose to threaten me instead of listening to what I was saying. My voice gets stronger as I talk about hoping she gets help in prison, but also hoping she serves every single day of her sentence, because kids deserve to feel safe from adults who hurt them. When I finish reading the last sentence, I look up and see the judge nodding slightly, her expression serious and focused, and I walk back to my seat feeling like I just did something really brave and really hard at the same time. The substitute's lawyer stands up and lets her speak next, and she gives this long, rambling apology that blames stress and unfair treatment, while barely saying sorry for what she actually did to me. She talks about losing her teaching license and how hard her life has been, about the pressure she was under that day, about how she didn't mean for things to go so wrong. The judge's face gets tighter and more annoyed as the substitute keeps talking, making excuses instead of taking real responsibility. When the substitute finally stops, the judge leans forward and speaks in a voice that cuts through the courtroom. She says bluntly that the substitute terrorized a child who tried to help her, that no amount of stress makes it okay to stalk and break into someone's home, that the pattern of blaming everyone else is exactly why she's dangerous. The judge sentences her to the full 15 years with no chance of getting out early for at least 10, and I feel this huge weight lift off my chest like I've been holding my breath for months and can finally let it out. Outside, the courthouse reporters crowd around us with cameras and microphones, shouting questions about how I feel and what I want to say. Mom puts her arm around me and shields my face, guiding me toward a side entrance while telling them firmly that we have no comment. Stanley Robinson catches up to us in the parking lot and thanks me for my bravery, saying the statement I gave will help other victims find their voices when they need to speak up. Harley Morrow appears too and pulls me into a hug, reminding me I can still call her anytime even though the legal case is over now. We drive home in silence, Mom's hand reaching over to hold mine, both of us processing what just happened and what it means that the substitute will be locked away for so many years. Life slowly gets back to a new version of normal over the next few months, different from before but better in some ways. I keep seeing Madeline Cameron twice a month, working through the things that still trigger my fear and building confidence in situations that used to scare me. The nightmares start happening less, maybe once a week instead of every night, and I begin sleeping through until morning more often. Mom goes back to work part-time in March, and we create routines that include checking the security system and locking doors, but don't make our whole life about being afraid. I still jump sometimes when I hear unexpected noises, still feel my heart race when I see someone who looks like the substitute from behind, but these moments pass faster now and don't ruin my whole day. Harold and I become real friends instead of just kids who went through something scary together, bonding over our shared experience of adults failing us and having to be braver than kids should have to be. We eat lunch together every single day, talking about normal stuff like video games and homework, but also about the harder things when we need to. His mom and my mom start having coffee together on weekends, creating this support system that helps all four of us feel less alone. Harold's allergy gets managed carefully with new protocols at the school, and I never feel guilty anymore when I see him practicing with his trainer EpiPen during safety drills. Watching him confidently explain his allergy to new people makes me proud of how far we've both come. Paloma Gomez pulls me aside one day in April and asks if I want to be a classroom helper again, and I surprise myself by saying yes, but with some changes from before. I explain that I'll help new students learn the routines, and I'll answer questions about procedures, but I'm also going to speak up immediately if something seems wrong, and I need her to always listen when I do. She agrees right away, saying those boundaries sound healthy and smart, and she starts treating my input like it actually matters instead of just using me to do tasks. The other teachers hear about this arrangement and begin asking their own helpers for thoughts and concerns too, creating this whole culture where student voices get taken seriously instead of dismissed. Standing in front of the classroom explaining fire drill procedures to a new student, I realize I can be helpful without losing myself, that speaking up and being kind aren't opposite things but actually go together. A few weeks later, the principal calls an assembly to announce new district rules for substitute teachers. Every sub has to review the allergy chart before class starts and sign a form saying they checked it. They also created a safety hotline where students can report concerns without giving their names, and the principal asks me to help the student council design how it should work. We meet after school 3 times, sitting around a table with poster board and markers, figuring out what questions the hotline should ask and how to make kids feel safe using it. I suggest adding a question about whether the student tried telling an adult first, because sometimes kids need permission to go over someone's head when the first adult won't listen. The other council members agree, and we add it to our proposal. The principal approves our design the next week and puts posters about the hotline in every hallway, and seeing something I helped create protecting other kids makes the whole terrible experience feel less pointless. Spring arrives with warmer weather and announcements about the school play auditions. I've never tried out before because being the classroom helper took up all my time and energy, but now I have boundaries and space for other things. I sign up to audition for the spring musical, some story about kids starting a garden, and my stomach twists with nerves when I walk into the auditorium for tryouts. The drama teacher has me read a scene and sing a short song, and I'm not amazing, but I'm not terrible either. 2 days later, the cast list goes up, and I got a supporting role as one of the neighborhood kids who helps with the garden. Rehearsals happen 3 times a week after school, and I love every minute, learning choreography and songs and how to project my voice to the back row. Being on stage lets me be someone else for a while, someone whose biggest problem is whether the tomatoes will grow, and the other kids in the cast become friends who know me as Rosalinda the actress, instead of Rosalinda the girl who got stalked. Opening night, my hands shake backstage, but once I step into the lights, everything else disappears. The applause at the end of our final show fills me with pride that feels different from being helpful. Pride that comes from doing something just because I wanted to. The anniversary of Harold's allergic reaction falls on a regular school day, and Paloma decides we should talk about it as a class. She facilitates the discussion carefully, asking kids to share times when adults didn't listen to them and what they did about it. One girl talks about telling her dad she didn't want to visit her uncle anymore because he made her uncomfortable, and how her dad finally listened after she told her school counselor. A boy shares about reporting bullying 3 times before a teacher actually did something. Harold talks about how scared he felt when his throat started closing, and how grateful he is that Maya knew what to do. Kids brainstorm solutions together, like finding another adult if the first one dismisses you, using the new safety hotline and trusting your instincts even when grown-ups say you're wrong. Hearing that other kids struggled to be heard makes me feel less alone, and the whole discussion feels healing in a way I didn't expect. Detective Hoover visits school the following week to teach a safety assembly about recognizing dangerous adult behavior. She uses examples that make sense for kids our age without being scary, talking about adults who try to isolate you from friends or family, adults who ask you to keep secrets from parents, adults who make you feel like you're responsible for their feelings or actions. She emphasizes over and over that kids are never responsible for what adults choose to do, that grown-ups are supposed to protect children, not hurt them. After the assembly, she finds me in the hallway and pulls me aside, her voice quiet and serious. She tells me she became a detective because an adult hurt her when she was young, and seeing me heal and grow stronger gives her hope that she made the right career choice. Her honesty surprises me and makes me feel connected to her in a new way, like we're both survivors of different terrible things. Summer vacation starts and Mom signs me up for a day camp focused on outdoor activities and building confidence. I'm nervous about being away from her all day and being around so many new people, but the camp counselors are patient and kind. The activities push me just enough to feel accomplished without overwhelming me, things like hiking and swimming and team challenges. I make friends with kids who don't know anything about the substitute or the stalking or the home invasion, kids who just see me as Rosalinda, who's funny and good at capture the flag. Being treated like a normal kid instead of a victim feels incredibly freeing, like I'm getting pieces of myself back that the trauma took away. The camp offers rock climbing on their outdoor wall, and I try it on a whim during free choice time. Something about the physical challenge appeals to me, the way I have to problem solve which holds to grab and how to balance my weight. The climbing instructor watches me figure out a difficult route and compliments my determination, offering to give me extra lessons during the advanced activity period. Mom is thrilled when I tell her about it that night, happy to see me excited about something that has nothing to do with being helpful or responsible or dealing with trauma. I climb 3 times a week for the rest of camp and get good enough to reach the top of the tall wall. Midway through summer, Cassie calls Mom to invite us to Harold's birthday party at a trampoline park. I'm hesitant about the crowd and noise, worried it might trigger my anxiety, but Harold calls me himself to ask me to come. He says it won't be the same without me, and his voice is so genuine that I agree. The party is loud and chaotic with kids jumping everywhere and music blasting, but once I start bouncing on the trampolines, the joy takes over. I jump until my legs ache and my lungs burn, laughing so hard my stomach hurts, and for whole minutes at a time I forget to be scared or vigilant or worried. Harold and I have a competition to see who can do the best tricks into the foam pit, and we're both terrible at it, but we don't care. The drive home, I'm exhausted and happy, and Mom squeezes my hand at a red light with tears in her eyes. Madeline and I have our final official counseling session in late July, though she says I can always come back if I need to. We review how far I've come since the bathroom attack, from a terrified kid who couldn't sleep to someone trying new things and building a life beyond the trauma. She points out all the ways I've grown, how I set boundaries now and speak up for myself and make choices based on what I want, instead of what others expect. She tells me I'm one of the strongest people she's ever worked with, and I believe her because I know what I survived. We hug goodbye, and she reminds me that healing isn't linear, that I might have hard days or setbacks, but I have all the tools I need to handle them. Before 6th grade starts, the middle school principal calls to talk with Mom about my transition and what accommodations I might need. Mom puts the call on speaker so I can participate, and I'm surprised when the principal addresses questions directly to me instead of just talking to Mom. I explain that I want to be treated like a normal student, but I need teachers to take me seriously. When I speak up about safety concerns, and I need to know I can leave class if I'm having a panic attack without getting in trouble. The principal agrees immediately to both requests and says my reputation as someone brave and helpful has already reached the middle school teachers. She promises to brief my teachers privately about what happened, so they understand my needs without me having to explain over and over. The first day of 6th grade arrives hot and sunny, and I walk into the building wearing a necklace Mom gave me that morning, a silver chain with a small shield charm. My new teachers introduce themselves and make eye contact when they talk to me, showing a respect that feels different from elementary school where teachers sometimes talked down to kids. My homeroom teacher asks if anyone wants to volunteer to help welcome new students throughout the year, and I raise my hand. But this time I'm choosing it because I want to not, because everyone expects it. 3 other kids volunteer too, and we're all assigned as peer mentors, which means helping is shared instead of all falling on one person. At lunch, I sit with 2 girls from my homeroom who seem nice, and we talk about teachers and schedules and summer vacation. Nobody asks about my past or treats me like I'm fragile, and starting fresh feels like the best gift 6th grade could give me. The 2 girls from lunch, Christy and Sophia, become my regular lunch group, and we start sitting together every day. Christy is really good at math, and Sophia loves reading like me, and within a few weeks they ask if I want to form a study group that meets at the public library on Thursdays after school. I say yes, because helping them understand their homework feels different from being the designated helper, like I'm choosing it instead of it being my job. We spread our books across a big table near the windows, and work through problems together, and I discover I'm good at explaining things in ways that make sense to other kids. Sophia mentions the peer mediation program during one of our sessions, saying they need more 6th graders, and she thinks I'd be perfect for it. I'm not sure at first because conflict makes me nervous after everything with the substitute, but Christy points out that I already help people see different sides of things when we're studying. I fill out the application that night and turn it in the next morning, thinking maybe understanding conflict and resolution could be useful since I lived through so much of it myself. Harold starts 6th grade at my school 2 weeks after I do, and even though we're in different classes, we make a plan to meet every Wednesday for lunch. Our designated catch-up day becomes my favorite part of the week because we talk about normal stuff like homework and crushes and which teachers give too much work. He tells me about trying out for soccer, and I tell him about the study group, and neither of us brings up the substitute or the allergic reaction or any of the scary stuff. His mom texts my mom photos of us laughing together at lunch one Wednesday, and mom shows me the message that says she's grateful every day that we both survived and found each other. Seeing Harold healthy and happy, joking about his soccer coach and complaining about his science project, makes me realize how far we've both come from that terrible day in 5th grade. In October, my English teacher assigns a personal narrative essay about a significant experience that changed us. Most kids groan about the assignment, but I immediately know what I want to write about, and I spend 2 weeks working on drafts about the substitute teacher incident and everything that happened after. Writing it as a structured story with a clear beginning, middle, and end helps me see the whole experience differently, like something that happened to me instead of something that defines who I am. I include the guilt I felt about staying silent, the fear during the home invasion, and the growth that came from speaking up and surviving. My teacher gives me an A and writes a note asking if I'd be willing to read it at the school's storytelling night in November, saying my essay is powerful and other students could learn from it. I think about it for 3 days, talking it over with Mom and Madeline during our monthly check-in session, before deciding yes. The night of the storytelling event arrives cold and clear, and the auditorium fills with students and parents settling into their seats. My hands shake when I walk up to the microphone, but my voice stays steady as I read, telling the story honestly without hiding the scary parts, or pretending I was braver than I felt. I include my initial guilt and fear, but end with the positive changes that came from speaking up, from the new school policies to my own growth. The applause when I finish is so loud it startles me, and afterward 3 different students come up privately to tell me about times adults didn't listen to them, thanking me for making them feel less alone. One girl with tears in her eyes says she's been afraid to report a teacher who makes her uncomfortable, but hearing my story gave her courage to talk to her parents. Mom gets a promotion at work in November, and we celebrate by finally taking the vacation we had to postpone after everything happened. We drive to the beach for a long weekend, and I spend hours building sandcastles and swimming in the waves without thinking about the substitute even once. The ocean is freezing, but I don't care, running in and out of the water until my lips turn blue and Mom makes me wrap up in a towel. She takes a photo of me laughing in the waves, my hair wet and tangled and my smile genuine, and later she frames it with a little label that says, "Moving forward" on our living room wall. The peer mediation program starts training sessions in December, teaching us about conflict resolution and how to help people see each other's perspectives without taking sides. The program coordinator is strict but fair, making us practice different scenarios and learn when to step in versus when to let people work things out themselves. My first real mediation case happens in January with 2 students fighting over a group project, one saying the other isn't doing their share of work, and the other saying the first one is too controlling. I help them talk through their frustrations and find a compromise about splitting tasks more clearly, and watching them shake hands at the end gives me the same satisfaction that being the classroom helper used to give me, but healthier because I chose it. The coordinator tells me afterward that I'm a natural at this and should think about studying conflict resolution or law when I'm older, which makes me feel proud in a way that's different from being told I'm helpful. During winter break, a card arrives in the mail from Detective Hoover, with a note updating me that the substitute is adjusting to prison and participating in her required mental health treatment. She writes that I never have to forgive the substitute or think about her, but some victims find closure in knowing their attacker is being held accountable and getting help. I read the card twice and realize I rarely think about the substitute anymore, that she's become a chapter in my story instead of the whole book. 6th grade continues with all the normal ups and downs like difficult tests and friend drama and school events, and I handle it all with a strength that surprises even me. When a substitute teacher fills in for my math class one day in February, I feel a moment of panic, my heart speeding up and my palms getting sweaty. But then I notice she's checking the allergy chart on the wall and asking students about their needs before class starts, and I take a deep breath and introduce myself. I offer to help and she accepts gratefully, treating me like a capable person instead of just a kid. And by the end of class, my panic has faded completely. Harold and I prepare for weeks to present together at a school assembly about allergy awareness and the importance of students speaking up about safety concerns. We're both nervous, but we practice our parts until we can do them without notes, planning to tell our story as a team with his near-death experience and my struggle to be heard. The assembly happens on a Friday morning with the whole school packed into the auditorium, and we stand on stage with the microphone between us taking turns speaking. Harold explains what it feels like to have a severe allergy and how scary it was to almost die, and I talk about trying to warn the substitute and being threatened for speaking up. The principal announces new policies afterward, making student safety reports a priority, with a direct hotline for concerns and a promise that adults will listen. The assembly ends with students signing a pledge to watch out for each other, and standing on that stage with Harold, both of us healthy and strong, feels like the truest victory over everything that happened. Spring brings standardized testing in April, and I score in the advanced range for both reading and writing, which opens up opportunities for honors classes when I start 7th grade. My teachers recommend me for the gifted program in a meeting with Mom, noting not just my academic skills but my maturity and leadership qualities. I'm proud of these achievements because they're mine alone, earned through my own work and effort rather than being assigned as the designated helper, because adults decided I was responsible. The last day of 6th grade arrives with sunshine streaming through the classroom windows and everyone signing yearbooks during the final hour. The principal's voice comes over the intercom asking me to come to the front office, and my stomach drops for just a second before I remember that bad surprises don't happen anymore, that I'm safe now. I walk down the hallway and find Paloma standing in the lobby holding a huge bouquet of flowers and a giant card covered in signatures. She smiles when she sees me and explains that my old 5th grade class wanted to send something special for my middle school graduation. I open the card and see messages from every student, including one from Diego in both Spanish and English, thanking me for helping him feel welcome. Paloma tells me the class remembers me as the student who showed them that being kind doesn't mean staying quiet, and that speaking up is the bravest kind of helping. I hug her hard, thanking her for believing in me during the worst time of my life. She says watching me heal and grow stronger has been one of her greatest joys as a teacher, and she knows I'll do amazing things. Summer starts the next week, and I spend my time getting ready for 7th grade, picking out school supplies and reading books from the summer list. I think about everything that happened since that terrible day with the substitute teacher. How different I am now from the girl who stayed silent to avoid conflict. I help people when I choose to, not because adults expect it, and I set boundaries that protect my own needs too. The fear and trauma will always be part of my story, woven into who I became, but they're not the ending or even the main plot anymore. I'm writing new chapters now, ones filled with real friendships like Harold and achievements I earned myself, and the quiet confidence that comes from surviving something awful and choosing to keep growing anyway. Life is genuinely good, and I'm happy, surrounded by people who love and respect me for who I am, ready for whatever 7th grade and the future bring next.